My mind is set, my grind is set, my heart on ice cold. I'm only here to even a score. Whoa. My mind is set, my grind is set, my heart on ice cold. We down right now, but did it before. Whoa. See from here we going up. Made the call, I shown up. Now the game is sewn up. Say my name is blown up. We up, 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 we up. See from here we going up. Made the call, I shown up. Now the game is sewn up. Say my name is blown up. We up, 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 we up.
What up, Night Nation, and welcome to the Knighted Ones podcast, episode number 83. As a reminder, we are the only podcast that features a former UCF national champion, a former UCF radio host, an ESPN analyst and hoops player, an infamous, yes, that's infamous rapper, our resident influencer and IG star, shooting the breeze, talking UCF sports. Remember to like, follow us, and subscribe on YouTube, IG, and check out the 70-plus teams and conferences on the College Huddle, Big 12 Huddle, and Fourth in Florida. All right, guys, just wanted to throw a quick shout out there to our boys, Alan, Ben, and for holding down the fort last week. I unfortunately had to miss this week, and I missed y'all, but I'm back. The good news is we've got some of the crew back. We don't have all of them, and unfortunately, Nobra is out sick, so I am stuck producing. So, Nobra, if the show turns out terribly when you're doing post-production, I'm sorry. That being said, let me go ahead and introduce the team and bring them to the stage. First to the stage, Ben Stout. Welcome back, my friend.
What's up? What's up? Good to be back. Good to be back for another week. I'm glad you're back with us, Roger, and good to be back together. And we'll talk some UCF sports.
Yeah, lots of hoops news to talk about this week. We're remaking an entire roster already, so I'm excited to have you talk about that for sure.
Yeah, every season it seems to be the case, and we'll just have to get used to it, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. All right. Since there's three of us this week, last but not least, but always last, Josh Lazar. Welcome back to the show, my friend.
Hello, world. How's everyone doing today?
Can't complain, my friend. It was a beautiful day. I don't know how it was for you guys in Orlando, but this weekend was beautiful when I was there. Today, it was absolutely stunning up here in Northwest Florida in the Panhandle. So I hope you guys enjoyed it, and I hope the guys at practice enjoyed it too, because it was a little bit cooler and a little bit windy, and that's always good when you're out there practicing on the football field. I can attest to that. That being said, some of you may have enjoyed a little something. We had open practices again. I mean, if that's what you'll call them, with Scottfrost bringing those back. And we had the second open practice of the season. And we got a little spring football in. So just to wet the whistle. It was a real interesting day for me. You know, a few things that kind of jumped out is I think the tough is back at UCF. So that fierce, as that's in our background, I think that's back at UCF. We saw a lot of Oklahoma drills. We saw, a lot of attitude, and it was something that we were missing. I think, we've talked about it ad nauseum with Trey that I think we were missing, as far as being competitive, supporting each other in the right way, and just that toughness. There was a lot to be said about Gus Malzahn and how he ran the program and his thoughts on, basically running this like these guys were already NFL stars, because he was bringing in these 4-star folks. And I really think we were talking about it while he was here, but I really think that led to some complacency and lack of competitiveness. So, for me, as I kind of watch this, I watch how they interact with each other. I watch the toughness, the competitiveness. It's on a different level than what it was. Just again, we've only seen glimpses, but it looks like it's on a different level than what I've seen in the past under Gus Malzahn thus far. So, what do you guys think about those Oklahoma drills? I hated doing them when I was a player. It was never fun. And actually, just a quick story. When I was a player, I got my first stinger doing Oklahoma drills. We were doing one, And, I was a very, very young player. I didn't start playing until high school in my freshman year. And I remember this Oklahoma drill, and I was up against a running back. I played linebacker at the time, and I did not lead, or I led with my head, and that was a mistake. So crashed right in, got a stinger, fell straight backwards, didn't know what was going on. And of course, at that time, coaching was a little bit different. We were doing 3 days, and coach just said, okay, you're all right, son, get up, let's go. That was it. But one injury we did see this week that actually happened during those Oklahoma drills was Day Farmer. For those of you that didn't attend, Day is a big time recruit for UCF that we were able to bring him over. I believe he's a sophomore, a lot of expectations for him. We didn't get him the first time around, but he did transfer. And it looked like when he was running, he was trying to do a cut, and his knee did not bend the right way, and tweaked it. Stood up, went straight to the trainer's table. We don't know how bad the injury is, but it did not look good from what I saw. And Day-Day's going to be a huge part, or was going to be a huge part of UCF's football team this year. So I'm hoping, it's nothing major. What do you guys, any other takeaways from that, or the Oklahoma drills and what you saw?
Well, I agree with you that the toughness is back. I mean, it seems like competition is back is probably the easier way to say it. It feels like the entire team and the mindset this season, or going into this season, and obviously in the spring camp, seems to be more revolving around that spirit of competition, kind of that chip on your shoulder. I mean, we've talked a lot about the nostalgia of the Scottfrost hire, but I think one of the things that we're really tapping into as a fan base, and we're seeing in any glimpses that we are able to see, is just that mentality of who we were in 2017, who we were in 2018, et cetera. And just like that team with always trying to prove itself. And I think that type of mentality has been projected onto these players as Scottfrost and his staff have come in to UCF. And I think that's what we're seeing. I think we're seeing players who are, appear to be buying in. We're getting to know them a little bit better than we have in years past, as we've discussed a lot about, just the transparency of this team camp. And I think that's what we're seeing in some of the, not only, competition that we're seeing in practice, but even some of the competitive drills, as you mentioned. It's a shame about Day Farmer. That's not only an athlete that we were looking forward to seeing on the field this fall, but that's a position at UCF that has a lot of question marks right now. Who is going to be our go-to receiver? Who is going to be our starting receiver core? Who has picked up this Scottfrost offense as well as he possibly can, and is kind of catch the ball and run with it, I guess, if you will. So that's a big question mark position wise, and losing a guy like Day is not good news coming out of spring camp. That's for sure.
Yeah, I'll say that I want to echo those sentiments. I really liked what limited things that I'm seeing on film. Unfortunately, wasn't able to get to any of the practices this semester. It's I mean, this is just a mirror, right? Of Ben. Competition's back, and we see it. People are having to build up the strength they need because they weren't probably pushed. And my hope is through all this, we all want wins, we get it. But my hope through all this is that we're actually showing that we can develop these players in a manner where further development might make them stick around a little bit more than having this whole basketball reset we have every year and kind of sort of the football reset we have often. So I've kind of posited a little bit that the best teams are going to do a mix of things, which is keep the people who are doing really well, develop people into where they want to be, and they're going to have this kind of sustaining culture. That's really beyond what Ben was saying. I feel like, I'm going to say the culture is back. Let's be clear. This is pretty soon. but the concept of having a good internal culture where you have players and coaches working together to build together, to be more we and a little less me. And there's a lot of me. That's okay. This is what is kind of going on. But even a good amount of we, and we're not even going to talk about Nico today. I don't think that's on there because that might be interesting. That we seems like it could be back within reason. And I feel like a lot of people are falling out of love with college football because of what's going on in NIL or nil. I keep being told. I was talking to a listener earlier about saying nil instead of NIL, but all I'm saying is this: it feels like some of the things that some of us loved about college football, and specifically UCF, may be coming back a little bit. And that's what I've seen so far in not just the practice, but what I'm seeing and hearing from we actually see and hear the coaches now. I feel like that's really something to be hopefully celebrated, and we'll see what the results are.
Well, I think the big thing, with all of that is it's not just football, it's all sports, right?
Right.
Just the way college is going.
Fair.
And, we'll talk about this a little bit later on some of the comments that a certain sports personality with the last name of Hill, Jameel Hill, had about that, and specifically called out UCF in her comment and her tweet. We'll talk about that a little bit later. All right, let's move back to the spring. Another position group. We mentioned a couple of position groups here, but another position group that seems to be always in question since George O'Leary was here. The linebacker position, right? So, I mean, it's every year when we're doing our previews, we talk about going back to the Nightline days, Ben. Like, what position group are we most worried about? It's always linebackers, and one of the things that I found interesting is I'm not that worried this year. I'm actually pretty happy with where we are as far as linebacker is concerned. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 linebackers on the roster. What's interesting is it seems like we're going back towards the smaller linebackers. A lot of guys that are 6'1", 6'2". Now we've got some 6'3", 6'4" guys on there as well, but also thinner guys, right? So guys that are hovering around the 220 range. Now, there's been some debate. When you look at other Power 5 programs, the size of a linebacker, especially like a Mike linebacker or something like that, is typically around 6'3", 6'4", 230-ish pounds. But I want to point this out to everybody. As someone who played the game, yes, and Trey talked about this too. He picked up weight when he played safety at UCF. And when you're picking up that weight, you're trading it for speed. And our defense seems to be more predicated on speed. So what you're seeing is more guys that align with that speed philosophy as opposed to just the bruisers. So you'll have your safety still crash down and plug gaps on the run game, right? But a lot of these guys, if you're looking at them, it's 223, 235. Quentin Johnson's 240, redshirt senior, etc. But most of them are 6'2", 6'3", 220, hovering around 220 pounds. That's okay. You don't need to worry about that. It's 10 pounds of muscle here or there, maybe an inch of size, but they're looking for speed, and that's what this particular defense is predicated on, especially since the expectation is that the offense is going more quickly and they're going to get more reps. It's not like what it was with Gus's offense. Now, as far as the defense is concerned, we had some pretty big linebacker position guys come in as transfers, and we still have some really good high school guys that are now in their second or third year, right? So we were talking about Phil Picotti. I don't know if you guys even remember. He's the guy from Oklahoma that was an All-American that's still on the roster. Another guy to kind of watch and is getting a lot of run right now. And again, this is the spring. Cole Kozlowski, 6'2", 230 pounds. He's getting a lot of run. Andrew Harris seems to be coming into his own. He's listed at 6'2", 223. He's put on some weight as well, but he's looking really good as well. And he should be probably our Mike linebacker position for this year, at least coming out of the spring. You got Qua Birdsong, who's making some noise. He's getting a lot of reps and seems to be moving up. The interesting thing about him, he's a redshirt freshman, 6'3", 202 pounds. He's one of those guys that's almost like a edge type guy. So when you have your linebacker positions, you got 3 linebackers, you're going to need a speed backer as well. And that's the guy that's going to be, he's going to be the guy that's going in on blitzes. He's the guy that's going to be protecting the edge because you're going to go strong on one side, try to push them to the edge, and you need a linebacker on one end that can move or can shade a tight end if they have a tight end that's catching it. With his size, 6'3", that really helps. Kelly Lawson's another guy to look out for. Remember, he's the redshirt senior linebacker from Virginia Tech. He's making noise as well. So I really feel like, and there's other guys on here. I mean, we still have Cam Moore who's making progress. And some of the younger guys that are on here, DJ McCormick, redshirt freshman. He's only 6'1", 205. You got Troy Ford Jr., who, remember, was a 4-star, borderline 3-star, but 4-star linebacker coming out of high school. And we still have TJ Bullard, but as Alan likes to say, Bullard for some reason. He always says Bullard. He's on here too, and he got a lot of run. He's a redshirt junior. I think, though, the guys that are going to be getting most of the run, at least coming out of spring, and what we've seen, is Andrew Harris, Qua Birdsong, Kelly Lewis, and Kozlowski. And I'm hoping to see Picciotti was injured again last year. He had problems with his knees. Both of his knees had sustained injuries. So it's interesting to see what he's going to do because he was a highly touted player and he took a medical redshirt last year as a redshirt sophomore. But it's not a position that I'm worried about. What about you guys?
Go ahead, Josh.
Yeah. I was just going to say, yes, and I'm still concerned about it. Here's it. And I will say this. The reason I say that is because sometimes it's like if you have 4 quarterbacks, you have no quarterbacks. I'm not going to say if you have 12 linebackers, you have no linebackers. I'm just hoping that we can get to like a rotation of 5 or 6 and not like hope and pray that Qua goes down and we were left with nothing. Like this is kind of where we've had, Ethan Barr, we've had some people in the middle that have been really, really good. And you're almost like, oh my God, what's going to happen if something happens to them? To me, what I'm hoping is that we have enough in that room to push themselves, to get the proper training, to take to the coaching and get something workable. Until I see that, I'm still going to be like 10, 15-year UCF fan going, why is this the year we're actually not going to talk about this anymore? Or maybe next year. So I feel optimistic. I felt optimistic last year when I was at some spring practices and did talk to some people about who was in our linebacker room. And truth be told, they were right. It just, there's some other problems we didn't want to talk about back then. So yeah, I'm yes. And I want to see it. That's it.
Yeah, I think I think the linebacker position is an interesting one because you're right, Roger. I mean, every offseason, going into every fall camp, we're always like, what's going on with the linebacker position? And I don't know if necessarily we'll have to see come August, if we're still asking those questions. But historically, we've always talked about that at the beginning of the season or going into a season. But once the season kind of goes through it, some guys emerge, and we usually are relatively happy with the position group overall, minus the last few seasons. But so a couple of the guys that you mentioned that probably the name that I'm most excited about, just because, again, it's just kind of feels like a guy that steps up in level and competition, and steps into a UCF uniform and performs well for us, like a guy that we have had perform well for us in the past. I am excited about Cole Kozlowski. He just seems like that type of, linebacker that had a little bit smaller school or lower level school experience, but really excelled at that. That Patriot League school that he was at in Colgate. Shout out to Colgate. I was recruited by them pretty hard out of high school as well. I almost went there. Thank God I didn't, but I almost went there. But honestly, some of the multiple Patriot League defensive player of the weeks that he got last season, he had over 130 tackles. I mean, he just seems like the type of tackling machine that kind of comes to UCF and levels up in his ability and kind of shines on our roster in this defensive scheme, whatever it winds up being this season. He just seems like that type of guy that could possibly do that. I'm also excited about some of the guys that you had mentioned, like Troy Ford Jr., even like these guys that we're looking forward to seeing out of high school that we haven't quite seen a whole lot of yet. How much run are they going to get? That remains to be seen. But Andrew Harris is another one, I believe. How much run are they going to get remains to be seen. But I'm looking forward to what they can bring to the table this season, given the new opportunity and new chance that I know that they will be given by this coaching staff, because everybody's basically starting fresh.
Well, I can tell you, Andrew Harris will see a lot of run. He's finally stepping into that role. He's again one of those hometown heroes, just like Troy Ford Jr., right? That came into the program and stuck with us, which is unusual these days. And he was also a 4-star coming out of high school.
He had a lot of promise. So I'm really excited to see what he could bring to the team this season.
Yeah, so we've talked a lot about linebackers. Let's talk about another captain of the of a position group, right? The quarterback situation. So we had a little bit of a change. Dylan Rizk has exited the building. He again, a couple of shows ago, 3 or 4 shows ago, I called him Mikey Keene because he feels just like the Mikey Keene situation. For me was what was for Dylan Rizk, right? He showed some promise last year. He towards the end of the year, he ran into a little bit of a buzzsaw, but it looks like he was not going to get any playing time. We brought a highly heralded quarterback in from Indiana in Jackson, who was expected to compete this year for Indiana's starting job again and more than likely win it. We still have Ja'Kuri Brown, who's still on the roster as well. And that's really it. So now,
Cam Fancher as well. I think he's going to at least get it back up.
Yeah, Cam Fancher, there was a little bit of excitement about him after the first practice. We talked about him at that time. But it looks like the 1 and 2 position have kind of solidified themselves, and it looks like it's going to be Ja'Kuri Brown and Jackson, with Jackson getting the nod, which should be expected, right? He came in with a lot of promise. We paid a pretty penny for him. I mean, not as much. I don't know if it was as much as our favorite Waffle House quarterback, but he seems to be the right combination, because he's not a dual threat quarterback, right? He's not a quarterback who's going to be a run first quarterback, which Cam Fancher kind of tends to be more of a run first type of quarterback. He's a guy who can throw the ball down the field, and he was a lot more accurate in this spring practice than what we saw previously. But again, this is all new wide receiver room. They're getting timing down, all that fun stuff. What I liked out of him was the anticipation. So he had some throws where he was anticipating where the receiver was going to be, threw the ball before the receiver looked, and got it in a position where they were the only ones that could catch the ball. And by the time they turned around, saw it, the ball was right there. They made the completion, and it was good. And that's kind of what we're missing. Ja'Cory Brown has been looking better as well, passing the ball, but he still has a few of those, you missed that by a country mile kind of throws, but his legs look good. And I'm hoping that Ja'Cory's biggest problem has been what's been between his ears, right? He's good when the play breaks down. He makes some crazy plays. I think about when he ran 40 yards backwards down the field and made that long pass. He's got a cannon of an arm, but he's got some accuracy issues, and he didn't read defense as well. I'm hoping that that's being helped out now by the new coaching staff. We've seen the difference in wide receivers. We're hoping we see that in the quarterback room as well, especially with Frost kind of focusing on the offense. But Jackson looked good. He can move. He's mobile. He's not a stiff back there, but he's a guy who's looking down the field first, trying to find the open receiver. He's been anticipating a lot better, which is something also that we've been missing. Part of that is because we had a rotation at quarterback for a really long time. We had guys coming in, guys getting injured, other guys coming in. So I'm hoping, everything settles under Jackson, and, he's here early enough that he can develop what we need him to develop as a transfer in timing and really taking control of the team. So I was actually, the offense completely looked better, but I'm actually pretty impressed what I see so far. And Jackson, again, it's early, it's spring practice. We aren't seeing anything. We didn't see him really under pressure. But given the expectations of what he was supposed to be in Indiana, and what he looks like so far, is at least from his passing mechanics and his ability to anticipate and read defenses, I like what I'm seeing when it comes to that.
Yeah, I haven't got a chance to see too many highlights of our QBs in any type of video that's out there. But obviously you got a chance to see it in person, so I'll certainly trust your opinion on that. I agree with you on the front, on the Tavian Jackson front. He just seemed like the type of guy that he's transferring here for a reason. Scottfrost brought him in for a reason. And the type of guy that, with that anticipation, with that ability to read defense, it's just Scott Frost keeps saying that he's not revealing what this brand of UCF offense is necessarily going to be, along with the rest of his offensive staff. But that being said, we know what this offense is capable of, and from your quarterback position, you've got to be able to read defenses very quickly and make quick decisions in this offense. And it's not a very simple one, right? Like, it's not a one read type thing. And so I'm excited to, if you saw some good things from Tavian Jackson, I'm excited for that. Ja'Cory Brown is an interesting one, just on this new version of UCF football, on this team. Just because you got to be thinking that they're just like kind of salivating over his athleticism, and they got to figure out some way to use him, not to disrupt anything. I'm not calling for a Gus Malzahn kind of Joey Gatewood package or anything like that, but it just seems like Ja'Cory Brown's kind of freakish athleticism. The coaching staff has got to be kind of trying to figure out a way to use him in some way, shape, or form. I think he is going to be. He's certainly the front runner for that backup QB position, and potentially can grow into a capable starter as well. So I'm liking what we have at 1 and 2. It'll be interesting to see with Rizk leaving, if we try to go get another one. I imagine we will. I don't know if we're necessarily going to go after somebody that, I'm sure they're going to try to go get the best available. Don't get me wrong. It just, to bring in somebody that maybe is like, they'll raise a bunch of eyebrows. I don't necessarily anticipate that. But we need to fill our room up. And I imagine they'll go after one more. And we'll see who that person winds up being. And maybe it will be a surprise. And then all of a sudden that QB battle is more fluid going into the fall after the summer. So we'll see.
Yeah, I truly think, to your point, the question is Jacurri Brown a P5 level or P4 level quarterback? I keep forgetting that the Pac no longer is a power conference, right? Because we got so used to railing against the Pac or the Power 5, right? And then we got out of the habit once we got elevated, and then it got reduced to the Power 4. So they've got us all tongue-tied. But, when it comes to quarterback position, I do think that they're going to try to go get somebody to push Jackson, because if Jackson, knock on wood, something happens, right, that we don't want, you need someone that can at least push as a Power 4 level quarterback when it comes to playing that. I mean, that's one thing we've learned in our 2 seasons in the Power 4 level, and we talked about ad nauseum. It's not just about who your starters are; it's also about who's behind them and having the proper depth. KZ talked about that a little bit, about saying that they wanted 5 quarterbacks in the room. One of the guys, unfortunately, he's not going to push anybody, right? So you've got Cam Fancher, you got Brown, and as much as I like to see him make some plays, and I like his athleticism, and I love the fact that he came to us from the Cows, he's just not. I don't think he's going to get there by the end of his career, unfortunately, because I want to root for him. And I love his athleticism, and I think Frost probably loves his athleticism as well. But it's about what happens when you're, when you're in the huddle. Yeah, you know what I mean? When you're actually on the field. And I don't think Jacurri Brown will be that person. The interesting thing is, I do think Frost is smart enough, because we saw him set up things all the last time he was here. He was always setting up plays. What Gus did was he just lined them up and said, all right, execute the play. We never changed it, and either we made it or we didn't. Yeah. I do think that if they do, and I think they will, use Jacurri Brown, it'll be interesting for me to watch to see how they run him, because I think they'll run him certain ways to be able to set up some sort of trick play for a big game. And that's going to be the key. And then the other key is going to be, he'll be able to spell, or whoever the second quarterback is, but probably Jacurri, he'll be able to spell the primary quarterback, because we are going to run back up into 100. I feel like we're going to be into the 90 to 110 range as far as offensive plays, as long as the defense can get us back the ball. So I don't think we'll be hyperspeed anymore, but I think that our defense is good enough and focused enough on turnovers that we'll be in that range. He was that way at Nebraska, even though he slowed it down a little bit, and I expect that here as well. Josh, what did you think about the QB room?
Yeah, I think I'm kind of sad that Dylan's gone. But yes, I'm sad, and I really wish we could have pulled out that minus Cam Scattaboo Arizona State game. And the reason he's not here is probably because of that. Not just that, but the same mistakes he was making in that game didn't evolve then to now. And you have people who are not making those mistakes, or have other athleticism that work them into the rotation how they currently are. So I'm sad to see him go, and I really hope he has a Mikey Keene-like experience where he goes to some place and knocks it out of the park. That's the reality. He probably will. It probably won't be a P4, but I wish him well. He has the work ethic, and he'll do well in a system that fits his needs. I do agree there. I keep throwing in the private chat Nico, and I just, there is some relationship there, but with KZ and Tennessee and all that, but I just...
Dude, Nico is not coming here. We cannot afford him.
Allegedly already passed by Notre Dame and USC. I think he might feel like he's in a different negotiation state at this point. And truth be told, I'm not saying it's happening. All I'm saying is this: Francher's probably not pushing too hard. Like you're saying, Brown is not pushing too hard. We need someone to be. So we need someone else in that room. So
I don't know. everything I hear out of now, obviously a lot of things come out, but I've got some friends that are very close friends that are huge Tennessee fans, and like everything, they follow it, way more closely than I could ever imagine. And just over the last year and a half, it's just been nothing but headaches in the locker room. Complacency, doesn't show up for workouts, he's not on time ever, he's not a leader. I don't want anything to do, all the vibes that we're talking about right now, I don't want to disrupt her to that. No, thank you. No. Pass on Nico.
Well, that's what I was going to say. Like, it doesn't have to be that. And I feel like we're going to see another quarterback by the time August comes along. It's just my gut. We'll see what happens. I just feel like that's possibly going to happen.
Definitely have another quarterback, and I definitely think that they're going to go out. To Ben's point where he said best available, I think they are going to go best available because we do need someone more than Jackson under center. We just have to because of the way football is, and for us to stay competitive. And granted, are any of us hot take here, are any of us expecting us to go win the league? No, right? But we do need to have another quarterback that's competitive so that we can build, and we need someone that can push. We can't go. I don't see us going to get another Dylan Rizk. And no shade to Dylan, right? I hope he does well.
Yeah.
We were all rooting for him last year. And hoping that he had to stand out. I didn't see enough out of him to be a P4 level starting quarterback. So at this point, we do need someone else. And I don't think it's going to be anybody like Nico. I don't think we can afford him. I mean, he was making $4.1 million at Tennessee. Do I agree that, he's also a locker room headache? Probably. And Frost said specifically he didn't want that. I mean, part of what we're doing is going after 3-stars and a lot more high school guys so we can kind of form them. So we aren't doing what we did before. So there's no way, in my opinion, that either Nico comes because we can't afford him, and also because I don't think we would want him in the locker room. So, but I do think we will get another quarterback, 100% sure, for sure, and one that can push. Let's go ahead and pivot. Oh wait, we can't say that anymore.
Rotate. What was it?
We should say whatever the heck we want on this show. Because, you can go away from it if you'd like.
Swivel. That was what it was. Swivel.
We adopted swivel. That's right. Let's go ahead and swivel. Let's go ahead and swivel the wide receivers. So
pause.
Exactly. One thing that I'll say about wide receivers. We've had a room that's centered around 2 people for the past 2 seasons, right? And we've had a room that's centered around one receiver as the primary star focus receiver, and then another receiver who's basically like a support receiver, right? Or someone. Now, when we had Javon and, really those 2 were going at it the entire season where they were pretty close. But outside of that, we haven't really used the rest of the receivers. Now, what I'm seeing out of this receiver group, especially, when you're talking about things like separation, which we haven't seen a lot of recently, when you're talking about technique, when you're talking about the ability to juke guys, I like what I'm seeing out of this wide receiver group. And I think we have a group of guys that will do really, really well. Jordan Bridgewater was making some noise, and he's the redshirt freshman from Winter Garden, local guy, wide receiver. Bradell Richardson got back on the field. We talked about him earlier in the season and how he had some, how shall we say this?
Growing up to do. Growing up to do.
Yeah, growing up to do, 100%. Perfect way of putting that, Josh. He had some growing up to do, but he was on the field. He looked good in his route running. He looked really, really good, and he was catching everything that was thrown at him. So he is, if Bradell Richardson knuckles down and he has the right wide receivers coach now, he 100% does. If he knuckles down and gets with the program, he's going to be an NFL receiver, in my opinion. That's a hot take. I know he's a redshirt freshman, but that's my hot take on that. I think he's got the tools to do it 100%.
And I feel like he has the right coach now to do it, right? This is the thing that confused every single person who went to practice last year. You kept seeing these insanely amazing body bending type of catches, like old if you're UCF, like kind of old Brashard Perriman type stuff. And I'm not saying Odell Beckham Jr. level stuff, but things that matched some of that at times. And everyone and their mother was asking, why is this kid not on the field when we're just not doing great? And he has some growing up to do. And we talked to, I think Beck talked about that. Coach Beck talked about that. And it sounds like something is getting through, which is wonderful because we're in a time and space where we need reliable receivers, both on the field and as part of the culture of the team, right? We don't necessarily have this veteran of our UCF veteran wide receiver who's been there and done that and is learning this new way of working. We just don't. And it sounds like maybe some of that coaching through the interview process, with media, some things behind the scenes might be doing it. I don't think that's as hot of a take. Anyone who's seen him multiple times in either scrimmage or other practice viewing, you can tell he just needs to really have an opportunity and he needs to take advantage of it. And look at, I mean, I don't think we have the next KZ on our QB room right now, but who knows? Maybe. But he threw a lot of yards, and Yak as O'Leary said, but we might be seeing more of the 3,000 and 4,000 receiving yard or passing yard type of seasons in the future. I don't know if that's happening next year, but it's not going to be what we had under Gus, where we're like, hey, can we get to 2,000 passing yards, which sounds weird, but you have RJ and we're kind of focusing there. But I digress. On the wide receiver side, I'm really hoping that growing up is happening now.
It wasn't just RJ though. It was also the fact that we had JRP, and JRP was one of his biggest weapons was his legs, and we used them. And that's okay. I mean, when you look at total yards, not just passing yards, right? But when you look at total yards, people didn't realize, and I was screaming this up and down, as much as people were screaming about him, he put up a lot of yards in this offense.
Yeah.
Now, what he didn't do is that didn't always turn into touchdowns. And that was where our issues was because we ran out of gas. And, if you've got one weapon that you're using primarily, even if he's got both his legs and his arm, people key in on that, right? Defenses scheme for that. They game plan for that. And that's what I think you saw. Plus, for one of the games, they had the playbook. Day Farmer, up until this point, we already talked about him a little bit. He got injured in those Oklahoma drills. Hopefully it's nothing too serious, but he's another guy that is showing out. And Day Farmer was a guy that we were expecting to be really, really, really good. He was living up to his billing. And unfortunately now we just don't know if he's going to, be able to come back or when he's going to come back. And that's a challenge. Another guy whose name is sticking out is DJ Black, wide receiver, transfer. He came from quote unquote Limestone, but before Limestone, he was in a Power 4 program. Really good size, good skill set, seems to have his head on straight. And when you're talking about having a leader for that receiver room, DJ Black is the kind of guy that you want to see. And he's getting a lot of playing time because of it, because he's got talent. He's got the size and he's got the leadership. He took a long route to get to UCF and be in this kind of position in a Power 4 program again. But he's another name to watch out for. The other thing that I'm going to say at the practices, two guys that are freshmen that you need to keep your eye on: Carl Jenkins Jr. and Waden Charles. Both of them 6'2", one's 177, 185. Both of them Florida kids, freshmen this year. You can tell they have a lot to learn to be at the college level, because I don't like to use the word but, and They still have a lot of not only athletic talent, but the ability to win. And at the end of the day, I think those two guys are going to be names that you're going to remember. But if you go back through what I just said, that was about 7 receivers that are making noise. And yes, we have a pretty big receiver room, but you have 7 receivers in there that are vying. And the difference is that in Frost's offense, they will use more than just the 2 receivers on go routes, which is what we've been using for the past few years under Gus Malzahn. So having that many potential difference makers and guys that are that good, again, this is spring. I don't want to get everybody hyped up, but what I'm telling you is I'm seeing good technique. I'm seeing good route running. I'm seeing separation on DBs. What I'm seeing, in my opinion, is the difference, especially with some of the players that were here last year. What I'm seeing is the difference that Coach Beck is making, and he's always been known about his technique. He's always been about the fundamentals. He was a great receiver himself, and he put a lot of guys. We were wide receiver U for a long time, and a big reason why that was because of Coach Beck.
Yeah, I mean, what I like, just to very briefly add to that, is just what I like about it is it seems like there's a wide variety of options, and the creativity that we have seen from this coaching staff and the ability to use multiple guys. We seem to have kind of the right mix of size and speed to line up to that well, and hopefully the right guys emerge that are going to help us, put us in position to win ball games. And I like seeing a guy like DJ Black, who you mentioned, Roger, is just I like seeing a little bit bigger guy as a little bit of an outlet option in this offense. And then you've got some burners as well. Hopefully Day-Day, is able to come back healthy. I mean, he's a guy that ran track in high school, and you've got some guys that have a serious amount of speed. And then the unknown of Bradell Richardson, just we've seen so many flashes of potential and so many flashes of him being a stud receiver that to see it come to fruition this year would be just really exciting, to see him kind of rise to the top of this wide receiver room would be, I think, a fascinating storyline and be one that UCF fans would just really rally around and be excited about, myself included. So I'm keeping an eye out for those guys, along with the freshman wide receivers that you mentioned. Those are exciting as well.
Yeah, and the last position group I kind of want to talk about is the running back room, right? So obviously Miles Montgomery is the starter. He is the number 1 running back. He looked like he's taken another step forward as well when some of the interviews with him and some of the comments he's made on, he is changing. One, the style of running that he's doing is a little bit different than what we were doing last year. But I see some technique changes with him. He's adding more things to his inventory. He was a one cut speed back, kind of bowl you over kind of back. And he's, some of the things that he's doing with his footwork and some of the things that he's doing with his hips are a lot different. And Josh, I see that smirk, are a lot different and a lot better. And I think I see a lot of success out of that. Stacey Gage is another one, and Tavion Swint. Those are 2 guys that you kind of want to look out for, right? Stacey Gage, 4-star running back, local guy out of Tampa. A little bit bulkier guy, 5'11", 210 pounds. And then Tavion Swint, freshman out of Kissimmee, Florida. He was a big, get. He was also our first recruit by far. And stayed with us through the transition and everything else. Those 2 guys are making a name. I like what I see out of them. He's a little bit different. He's 5'10", 185 pounds, so less of a bruising back, but still enough weight behind him to be able to move through piles. I'd like to see him put a little bit more weight on, but again, he's a true freshman that came in. Stacey Gage is the other name, and I think Tavion Swint are 2 names that you need to look out for. And then the last one would be Jaden Nixon. So Jaden Nixon, 5'10", 185 pounds, out of Western Michigan, redshirt senior. He provides a little bit more of that senior depth. for us in the room. And he seems to be doing really, really well and getting significant playing time. So if I were to look out of spring, coming out of the 4, and again, spring's not over yet, but it's pretty close, right? They'll have another scrimmage, another 2 scrimmages this month. And the 2 scrimmages that they're going to have are going to be closed. So we won't be able to see them. But I would say if I was going to order them now, Miles Montgomery, number 1 right now, Stacey Gage, probably 2, and then Jaden Nixon and, Stacey Gage and Jaden Nixon, 2A, 2B, and then Tavion Swint, just simply because he's a freshman and he's got to grow into the position. But I'm really excited about the talent that we have there.
Yeah, all 4 of those guys. All UCF fans should be pretty excited about him. Jaden Nixon is an interesting prospect, or not prospect. He's been in college football for a long time, so prospect's the wrong word. But Jaden Nixon is an interesting addition to this room because, I mean, he almost rushed for 1,000 yards last year. Granted, it was at Western Michigan, but still, when you rush for almost 1,000 yards, you're being counted on by your teammates to carry the load. And so clearly he can do that. And so everybody saw the flashes and the different games that we saw from Miles Montgomery last year whenever he was able to spell RJ Harvey or just, insert it into the lineup because it was necessary for him to be in the game. I think Miles Montgomery is definitely going to step into that kind of leading back role, and he deserves it. And I think he's earned that spot. I'm really excited to see what he's going to bring to the table. And I think beyond Tavion Swint, which I agree, like he's stuck with us. He's been a recruiter for us to stay here in UCF. And so I have a lot of appreciation for Tavion Swint. I am anticipating him being a key part of this offense in the future, potentially not fully this season, but certainly in the future. But the other guy behind Miles Montgomery that I'm excited to see is Stacey Gage, just because he seems like the hammer of a running back that can just come in and in goal line situations or
actually weighs more than what Miles Montgomery has been putting on weight year over year. He's at 205 pounds. Miles Montgomery is. That's a tough running back to stop, right?
Right.
And then Stacey Gage, 210 pounds.
He's a big boy, man. I mean, it's going to be interesting with some of the quickness that Miles Montgomery has and his skill set paired with potentially some of the power that Stacey Gage has. It's just he was one of those guys, right? He was one of the boom guys out of St. Thomas Aquinas that we were just so excited when he signed with us. And we haven't seen exactly what he could do yet. I mean, which is understandable when you're behind an All-American running back. It is what it is. But I think that he has a chance of being a real breakout player this season, and one that will be, we'll be excited to see, hopefully, for years to come. I don't ever get excited to see a player. I don't project past one season for a player anymore, but by the same token, I think Stacey Gage is a guy that could potentially have a great future here at UCF, hopefully here at UCF.
Yeah, and the other thing with Tavion too is he had a few fumbles, right? So that was something that he's going to need to get a handle on as well. The last thing I want to talk about before we move on to hoops, and Ben, I know you've got a lot to talk about because we brought in 4 new players, so almost half a roster.
5 so far, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Okay, so almost half a roster, right?
Right.
I do want to talk about the kicking game. Grant Stevens is not the answer. He was 2 out of 11. So, granted, there is something to be said. We do have a snapper, a long snapper. That's a kid that is not traditionally a long snapper, was not recruited to be a long snapper, right? So that does make a difference because the timing is everything in kicking. Getting the laces out is everything in kicking. But what we've seen for the past 2 years out of Grant Stevens, it doesn't seem like he's going to be the guy. We do have a long snapper that's coming in that's pretty highly rated that we're expecting a lot out of, but he won't be here until after the spring is over and into fall camp. But we have to have another answer for the kicking game. It's not going to work. We have been practicing a lot of 2-point conversions. I think there's a reason for that. Not just because Frost, liked to do that the last time he was here, but I also think that he didn't want to show where our kicking game was right now. So it'll be interesting. But again, the kicking game, don't get too discouraged. Our punting actually looked pretty good. But that kicking game, there's going to be more players on the roster that are not on the roster right now that are going to be the ones that are kicking the ball. That's all I'm going to say about that. I don't know if you guys want to add to that, but that's what I have to say.
I have zero to add to that because I wasn't even aware of who our kicker was at the moment until you.
It's someone not doing.
Like we're going to get into it anyway, so we'll see.
Yeah, well, so and I will reiterate, when we have I don't think it's just the person who is filling in for long snapper right now, right?
Long snapper? I like that one better.
Yeah.
Long slapper.
That's a whole nother game. The long snapper is not who we expect to be on the field in August. So yes, and right, we're going to have someone else in. That we're going to find someone on the portal. I don't care if it has to be destroying. Someone is coming back here to kick again. So
he's got eligibility now.
I mean, possibly. Now he played for the Brahmas.
He's not doing that great in the XFL or whatever he's playing in right now. So
I don't know if you saw that tackle. Like he wasn't doing that bad until he attempted to really do looked like a decent forward tackle, but he's still he's not as big as the other people on that field. So anyway, someone else will be kicking for us again to push someone who really needs to be pushed. Maybe Boomer will come back. Who knows?
But no, it's not pushed; it's replaced. That's, I think, the right.
Trying to be nice.
I know you are. Listen, nothing against Grant. I'm sure he's a good person and all that fun stuff. Like we're not dogging on him for that. He's just not the answer, and we cannot go through what we went.
He's not him.
Or where we can't kick a field goal beyond 35 yards, and even that's dicey. You can't play Power 4 football and win games that way. The margins are too close, especially in the Big 12. Teams are evenly matched. You've got to have a strong kicking game to be able to compete, especially in all the close games. I mean, look at how many close games we lost. Part of that was team collapses, and that goes back to the physicality of the team. And I think the fact that they weren't pushed in the weight room. But also you still need to have the ability to kick if you're gonna be a Power 4 program, especially in the Big 12 with such parity and how close those games are. You can have a football team completely dominate another one in a half of football, and then the next half it's the other way around. So you've got to have a good kicking game. All right, let's go ahead and swivel.
Nope. Nope. We either bring back pivot or
right out of that.
All right, we may have to do it for Ben. Ben's still mad about that. Let's talk a little hoops. Ben, I'm gonna give you the floor, so to speak, because we had a lot of movement in the portal, and I'd love to get your take on who we collected and what you think of who we brought in. One today, I can't remember the kid's first name, but it's Bowl.
Yeah, John Bowl.
Yeah, John Bowl. It makes me think of Manute Bowl and
it's not Manute. It's not Bowl.
Yeah,
I can just kind of go through it one by one, and you guys can feel free to stop me if you have any comments or if you've heard anything about these guys. But I'll start off by saying that we have currently, according to 247, and man, transfer rankings have got to be. I know they got to put a content out there, but transfer rankings have got to be a seriously tough business. But we are currently ranked number 29th in the nation as far as our transfer class is considered, according to 247. And so we're.
Is it like football where it's like the number plus the?
I don't know because there are some schools ranked ahead of us that have more than just 5 transfers. So I don't necessarily think that it's just we've got the volume here necessarily, but I mean, Xavier is ranked number 20, and they have 8 commits, 8 transfers already signed. So
crazy. They had a good team last year.
Yeah, and well, that shows you the nature. Actually, that's a good point I wanted to bring up before I dive into this, because I had never really looked at the transfer rankings as far as players go prior to today, when I was just trying to read up on the players that we have coming in. And I started looking at like the number one, transfers or top 10 transfers. And I see names like RJ Lewis, who is the superstar at St. John's this year, Darian Williams, who was, just a great player for Texas Tech. I mean, we saw Darian Williams. I mean, he was one of those players that Jaden Quintons is the number 10 ranked transfer in the portal right now, and he was the star player for Arizona State this past year. So, and he's going to Kentucky, by the way, and so it's very easy to kind of Tucker DeFries is number 15. He was a star player for West Virginia. He's going to Utah of all places.
Utah drops cash, believe it or not.
They must, because he certainly is fitting that. I mean, Keyshawn Hall's number 15 overall. Obviously, we know he's going to Auburn for a bag, and see you later. But there's a lot of star players that are in the transfer portal nowadays, and I just wanted to highlight that to say that that's the world we live in. Just to reiterate, that's the world we live in, is that these players in college basketball, because one player can make such a difference, and it is not like football in the sense that in football, it does take a while to kind of get into the scheme of what the team is trying to do and learn the playbook and really learn the system in order to run it correctly. And I'm not saying that, year after year, we're always talking about transfers in college football. I understand that. But I think in college basketball, the reason why you see players on their now 4th or 5th school, and they're just bouncing year after year at a different place, and it's so prevalent and it's so exhausting as a fan, is just because not only can one player make such a huge difference, but also if you're somebody who is able, like basketball is one of those sports that you can just walk onto a court anywhere in the country if you know how to play basketball well, and you can just ball, like you can just play. And I feel like that's the way some of these athletes are looked at on the college basketball scene. Top players, we feel like we can plug this guy into our system, and it doesn't really matter what our system is. He can just go and play. And so that's what we're seeing here on the college basketball landscape. Anyways, so we have like almost all of our roster who is eligible to play next season, that was on our roster this past season, is in the portal, except for one very important name as of right now. And I'm going to knock on wood as I say it. I hope that Mustafa Chiam is the only one that sticks around. I'm okay with that if that is the case.
At the end of, towards the end of the season, you were like, the only one that I want to keep is Mustafa Chiam. So
and I have been saying, yes, you're right. I've been saying that forever. I mean, he's the one guy that I mean, for those that are listening that haven't heard the news, Jordan Ivy Curry before the Crown said that he was coming back to UCF, and everybody was like, well, that's awesome, because I don't know how you're going to play a 5th year of college basketball, but sure, I'm excited that you're coming back to UCF. And he seemed kind of out of nowhere, unprompted. He said he was coming back, and people were excited about it. He had a great Crown tournament, excellent in the championship game. I think he was a leading scorer of the championship game. And he announced that today it was announced today. He didn't necessarily announce, but it was announced today that he is entering the transfer portal. I think that regardless if he was going to stay or leave, he still needs to appeal to the NCAA for another year of eligibility. He's played in over 20 games for 4 years now, so it'll be interesting to see if he somehow gets that 5th year. But we're kind of going in that direction anyway, so I don't want to spend too much time on that. But Jordan Ivy-Curry is no longer with us as of now. There's 10 names in the transfer portal. I'm not even going to say the 10 names, but it's basically our entire roster this year, except for the seniors and Mustafa Chiam, and I hope Chiam
and Pooh. Yeah.
And Pooh. Is it? I thought, yeah, Pooh isn't a senior yet. I guess you feel like he's been here for a long time, but
yes, it seems like it. But
yeah, okay. So let's get to the incoming guys, and I'll go through them relatively quickly, but we'll talk about each of them. We have 5 incoming transfers. The highest rated of all of them, highest rated transfer we've ever signed here at UCF is a guy that Alan and I talked about last week, so I'll just kind of breeze over him. It's Riley Kugel. He's a local kid. He went to Dr. Phillips. I mentioned to you guys in the group text, I mentioned it on the show last week. He's a guy that I watched play a lot in high school. Really has a lot of athleticism. He's a solid shooter. He's a capable shooter. He's definitely a good defender. He can score at 3 levels. I'm excited to bring him in. I think he's for sure going to be in our starting backcourt next year. Started out his career at UF, transferred to Mississippi State last year.
Does he have more of a mid-range game? Because, he's traditionally been a shooting guard, and 33% from 3 is not bad per se, right?
Yeah, but it's not been his primary role, though. He is more of a slasher. He's kind of a mid-range guy, or just getting to the basket and kind of creating or playmaking from there. Yeah, his role necessarily on the teams that he's been on hasn't necessarily been a knockdown shooter. And you'll find a common theme until I get to the last guy about that. None of these guys, except for probably the only unranked guy that we've gotten so far, is considered a knockdown, assassin from the 3-point line. And maybe that's okay, but we'll kind of see how that's navigated as we go move forward in this season. And maybe some of the transfers we've gotten so far is because we thought Jordan Ivy-Curry was going to come back and be allowed to come back and play. So we'll see. But so Riley Kugel is going to be a part of the team next year. It's great to have a hometown guy come back. Somebody obviously he went to Dr. Phillips High School. That's where I went to school. So he won the first ever boys state championship with Dr.
How many records do you still hold at Dr. Phillips?
Maybe the block record, but I don't know if I don't have too many records there. But yeah. So all right. So moving on to and forgive me if I'm mispronouncing this, but Themis Folks. He is most recently at Milwaukee. He's a 6'2", 185 point guard. He's going to be a grad transfer. This is going to be his last season. Started out his career at South Carolina State, went to Louisiana for 2 seasons, and Milwaukee last season. And if I'm not mistaken, did we play? I believe we played Milwaukee. We either played Milwaukee. Yeah, we played Milwaukee last season, so he did play against us.
At home.
Yeah, it was at home. I'm pretty sure I actually had your seats for that game, Josh. I'm pretty sure that was the game that I went and saw. That being said, so he played here last year as a part of Milwaukee. He's our starting point guard. He's a 4-star transfer, rated by 247. He's 238th ranked. So, I mean, it's not like he's, top 100 by any means, but 238 out of, I think it's like 1,600 or 2,000, however many recruits are in the nation right now. He's the 40th ranked point guard. He was their main, starting point guard. He started every game last season. He averaged over 34 minutes a game, 14 and a half points, 3 rebounds. But what I like to see is six assists per game.
Yeah, that's huge.
I think that really shows how good of a distributor and playmaker that he is. 6 assists a game that's 2 more than DJ, average last season. And so that's a decent number. I don't care what level of basketball you're playing in. And he was on Milwaukee. That was number 2 in the Summit League last year. So they weren't a slouch of a team as far as in their league. He is not statistically a very good 3-point shooter. I've watched his highlights. When he can get the ball kicked to him and he's catching and shooting, like he seems to be a pretty good or a capable 3-point shooter, but that's not really part of his game. His game is kind of driving to the hole, either pulling up in the mid-range around the elbow or around the free throw line, just getting in the paint. But really his game is just trying to get into the middle of the defense and create for his teammates or create for himself. He's very good at slashing and kind of angling and getting to the rim. So he is a playmaker overall. And I think that barring some, really exciting signing moving forward, which certainly there's going to be more to come. So I put an asterisk on this for now, but he does project and he does seem like the type of player that could easily be our starting point guard next year. And I would be comfortable with that. So we'll see how that progresses, but I am excited about this signing. I think that he's one that could step in and certainly run the scheme that our coaching staff is looking to run.
Yeah. The interesting thing with him too, that Milwaukee team competed in the Summit League this past year as well. They were really good. They had a 21 game, or they had 21 wins last year as well within the league.
Mm-hmm.
So they're a solid team. And Milwaukee, actually, he's not the only one that was in the transfer portal. They got it kind of picked apart this year in the transfer portal as well, because they were making noise for a couple of years in a row. So it's interesting to see that.
They had another player, and I don't have his name pulled up here, but on that Milwaukee team, to your point, Roger, that JaMychal Stillwell is the player. So JaMychal Stillwell, I believe, is still in the portal. I think he's visiting UCF. He either visited UCF today, I believe, or maybe yesterday. So he's taking a couple of official visits this week. I think in Memphis in the next couple of days. So he's making his decision this week. So it would be very, very interesting if JaMychal Stillwell, as a 6'8", 225 pound forward, who 13 points, 10 points, almost 11 rebounds a game. If both of those guys came over from Milwaukee, it'd be very interesting to keep that pair together and see what we could do, because Stillwell is a great player as well. I don't want to spend too much time on him. I hope that he does be added to this team. We can talk about him next week, but yeah, I like the addition of folks. I think obviously with DJ leaving, we have a gaping hole at point guard.
And now with Juice leaving, we're going to need another guard too. So it's
absolutely
on the hunt again for guards because Juice is leaving as well.
Absolutely. I mean, we need kind of every position with 10 transfers out. So we'll definitely see who else we can add. But I really like the addition of folks. So moving on to the guy that you talked about earlier that we just signed today, that will be hopefully the perfect complement to Mustafa Chiam, whether he comes in off the bench for him or some crazy tall lineup that we play the two of them together like the Monstars. I'm excited about John Bull. He was the type. He's transferring in from Ole Miss. He's just going to be a sophomore next season, so he's got 3 years of eligibility left. He's 7'2", 210, 4-star transfer, 239th ranked transfer, 30th ranked center in the class. But he was a top 100 prospect in the country coming out of high school. I think he was the number 12 or 13 center coming out of high school. So certainly a highly recruited player. He played for that overtime elite squad that I think you guys may have remember if you follow like NBA. They like played a lot of G League teams, and he played for them his last year of high school. I'm just going to use that in air quotes because I don't know if you necessarily consider that overtime elite squad an actual high school. But by the same token, went to Ole Miss. He played in 17 games, but really didn't play much. He was just a bench player. But his any excitement about him coming to UCF is all around his potential and how exciting he was as a player in high school. He is certainly a raw talent offensively in particular, but when it comes to rim protection, when it comes to moving on defense and being that kind of elite shot blocker, he was known for that coming out of high school. I mean, he is not only a player that can run the floor really well, but he can move laterally well, and he gets off the floor extremely quick. And so so that part of his game, when you pair that with what we already know about Mustafa Chiam, having a very capable defender, rim protector to back up Mustafa is just huge going into next season. And I'll say that just like Mustafa did, he's going to need to put on some more muscle, especially in his lower half. He's going to be able to, in order to compete in the Big 12 and to be able to post up people and kind of establish his more well-rounded offensive game, because he's very raw offensively. But as far as rim protection goes, as far as blocking shots, I think he's a huge get for us in that category, and I can see him as somebody who will be a very capable addition to this roster next season.
Yeah, I think it's funny because he's 239th, and you just talked about Tamas. Yeah. He doesn't give a fucks, but that guy, he's number 238. So we got the 238 and 239 ranks.
And I'm about to talk about the 240th ranked as we move on, because we got all three of them.
Did you put that in order for on purpose?
I put it in order for a reason. I put each of these in the order that they were ranked on 247, and just so happens that we have the 238th, 9th, and 40th in the country according to 247.
Well, I will say this about him specifically: the biggest glaring thing that we saw last year, especially with Benny Williams and with Josias, right, was we needed a backup for Mustafa. One, for him to be as aggressive as he needs to be or wants to be or can be as a rim protector, we need to protect him for fouls, and we need to be able to sub someone in where we don't have such a huge drop off. And I think John Bull can. Again, he's a sophomore. Like you said, he needs to build strength, whatever. In high school, as you said, he was a huge rim protector. And I think that's going to be the biggest win for us, is that we have someone that we can sub in for Mustafa if he gets in foul trouble, so we can unleash him to what he can be as a shot blocker. Now, Mustafa last year, there were times where he was out of position or whatever, but he got better and better and better as the season progressed. He's going to be a sophomore. So you've got two very, very strong rim protectors that we can run either an offense. I doubt we'll run an offense through them,
right,
but we'll be able to unleash the rest of the offense. A lot of these players are defensive-minded players, and hopefully get out and run with the rest of the group if we've got someone back there that can rim protect.
And just for anything, Roger, I mean, it's like challenging Chiam in practice, like having a guy that's his height, just as athletic as he is, as far as jumping, getting off the floor quickly and all that stuff. Just having that battle in practice is going to make Chiam that much better, in my opinion. And so that alone is a huge get. And then you think about it, like when you're this height and this athletic in high school.
I can't think about it, Ben, but you can.
I know. I was only going to say I remember being one of those things. I was almost that height in high school, but I wasn't the super athletic guy that he is. But when you're John Bull in high school, right? Like, you don't have to develop a big repertoire of offensive, moves and skills, because you're catching 90% of your baskets that you're getting are just above the rim dunks, right? They're offensive rebounds and putback dunks or alley-oops. I mean, you're just a man among boys. And so I think that more than likely when he got to Ole Miss and he gets into that system and he's, on an SEC roster in an SEC league that is really tough this past season. I just think that those types of things prevented him, and there was a few people in front of him, just from getting the type of playing time that he was maybe looking for. And I'm not saying that he's necessarily going to be a 20 minute a game guy here. I'm hoping that he can develop and show that he could be that. But certainly I think just adding him to this roster for Mustafa's development alone is going to be a huge one. And who knows, with Mamadou Ndiaye gets a hold of him, who knows what type of game he could develop, just because we have shown through that assistant coach that we can develop some big men here and bring them into another level.
And I think you're right. I think that's something that's underrated, right?
Yes.
We don't talk about him a lot. We've talked about him a little bit more recently because of, our desire to keep Chim.
Right.
But he's a guy that's well respected within the community, number one, as a developer of big men. And he also is really, really good because he's that size and he knows, how to play the game. So from a technique and a technical standpoint, he's going to be really, really good for him, but he's going to be really, really good in teaching him, because what he's going to have to do backing up Mustafa, right, is different. Like you don't play the same way when you're the starter as when you're the backup. They're going to lean on you for different things and for different roster rotations. So what they're going to expect you to do is different. So it's going to be a lot more versatile. It's going to create more options for his game. And I also think that, to your point, I think it's going to push Mustafa in a way that's going to make him better. Iron sharpens iron. You pointed that out. I absolutely believe it's going to make Mustafa better, because the more he can play against guys his size and force himself to develop those skills, those technical skills, and both of them will be doing it at the same time. It's just going to mean that we're not going to have this huge drop off and have to pay completely different brand of basketball when we get these other guys in. Because you saw it. I mean, a lot of times we'd start to get ahead and we'd get breathers, and you can say what you want. There were times, and this is on the coaching decisions, right, that I felt like we left our guys in there a little too long when we got ahead, and it got a little too close. We should have rotated our starters back in a little bit. But again, I'm not there. That's just outside observer talk. You don't have as much of a drop off, and you can still play your game. And that's the important part, I think, of adding someone like this. So I am excited, like you've been, for him as well.
Yeah, and imagine the battles that in practice last season between Mustafa and Yasus. He must have eaten his lunch every single day. So to get challenged by a guy that is as athletic and just as big as Chiam is in John Bull, I think is a great addition to the lineup. So
awesome.
All right. So moving on to Jordan Burks, who was a very highly touted recruit out of high school, 6'9", 205 pounds. He's a small forward. He's a swingman guy. He's going to be a junior this year, so I believe that he's got 2 years of eligibility. He came from Kentucky as a freshman, and then he just transferred to Georgetown as a sophomore. So we're his third stop, but obviously with Kentucky and Georgetown, those are some big names in college hoops. So certainly a highly touted player. He is the 240th ranked. So we got, again, 238, 239, and 240 as far as 247 sports go. He's the 49th ranked small forward in this transfer class. He played every game for Georgetown this past season. Georgetown didn't have the season that they're used to having in the Big East, but he played in all 34 games. He averaged 18.6 minutes per game. He started in 11 of those games, nearly 6 points per game, 3.5 rebounds, and less than 1 assist a game. So certainly not any eye-catching stats, but some of the potential that you saw of him a couple years ago out of high school, and some of the flashes that he's shown at both Kentucky and Georgetown that stuck out to me in the highlight films. And again, there's no missed layups and highlight tapes, so I understand that. But I did watch a decent amount of highlights from not only Kentucky but Georgetown of Jordan Burks. And what I found to be interesting is that at Kentucky they had him, or he was more of an athletic, just get out in front of the break, and he runs the floor extremely well. And so gets out in front of the break, gets it down to him. He's finishing at the rim. That's something that I noticed that he was very good, not only at Kentucky doing that, but at Kentucky also is being the roll man in the pick and roll. He's somebody that dives to the front of the basket very well. He has good hands, and at that time, I guess it was the John Calipari offense. He had him running that high ball screen in that pick and roll action. And he rolled really well off of that. And he had a lot of opportunities created for himself based on that, where they'd get him the ball and he'd finish at the rim. He's somebody that scores really well off of that. But then at Georgetown, a lot of the highlights, as far as what stuck out to me difference-wise, is that he showed a lot of ability to get to the open spot around the three-point line and catch and shoot and knock it down. He's somebody who displayed that aspect of his game a lot more at Georgetown than necessarily he showed as a freshman at Kentucky. And so capable three-point shooter. He's almost 36% last year at Georgetown. He, as I said, gets to the spot really well. His teammates find him, and he's really great at catching and shooting. So seems to have a pretty well-rounded game to him. And because of his length at 6'9", he's got long arms and he is very athletic. He did prove to be a very good shot blocker as well from the small forward position, and a good on-ball defender as far as what I could tell from the highlights that I saw. And so I think another good addition, and I'm hoping that with all of these guys that we talk about tonight and moving forward, that not only do they look like a good addition on paper, but they kind of fit a role that Dawkins and the coaching staff really want them to play in this in the entire basketball scheme, not only offensively but defensively as well. Because I think that's potentially what was lacking a little bit out of the roster construction this past season, is that we got some good players, but they didn't quite fit the role that we needed them to play all the time, especially defensively. And so It looks like Jordan is capable defender, capable shooter, very athletic, and so hopefully he can fit a good role. Like I see him as a hopefully better JJ Taylor. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, the thing that jumps out to me, we tried to establish the pick and roll last year with Mustafa Chiem, right?
Right.
You saw it earlier on in the season. We tried to use it a little bit later in the season, a few times, like the middle of the season, we just didn't use it. Part of that was Keyshawn Hall, right?
Yeah, we just had one-on-one and the ball stopped when it got to him. Yes.
100%. So then when you talk about adding Jordan Burks off of a pick and roll game, I think that strengthens that part of our game offensively. And that's something I think everybody recognizes that we need to get better at. The other thing is, combine that with Folks, someone who has 6 assists per game, right? And assuming this guy is going to be our lead distributor and point guard, that sets up really, really well. His game pairs really, really well for that pick and roll game. So to me, just going through all of these different additions to what we're doing, 1, it looks like we're focusing more on team basketball. 2, adding some offensive pieces to our game that we didn't have before. And 3, the ability to distribute in a way that opens up the offense for our bigs a little bit more. And I think that's a piece of our game, especially in the middle of the paint against the zone, that was missing because, you know, we'd have threes, right? Like we'd have people around the arc all the time, and then we had 1 or 2 slashers, but we didn't have a lot of movement outside of that. So if you've got that, when you've got a zone defense, you really need people to break up that 10 to 12 feet away from the rim. And that's what I'm kind of seeing as far as thematically is concerned, as far as offensively is concerned with these additions. And, you know, when you're talking about playing roles, all of them fit well into that role. Now they do other things well too, but I see like a vision of where we are trying to incorporate that more. And that's really going to help Mustafa. That's really going to help him because it'll unclog the lane and give him some breathing room, because he does have good touch. He has a good shot within 5 to 7 feet of the rim. He's got a turnaround that he can utilize. And if you've got other guys where they're having to worry about breaking up that zone defense, then I think that's going to open up that game for him and the other guys that are involved, especially if we can really get into a pick and roll.
Yeah, another trait that just to quickly go back to Fultz, because you just mentioned him there, and you had some good points. But like another trait that I saw on his highlight reel is I always like point guards that play with like a bit of pace. And what I mean by that is not always like sped up. They're like a good point guard plays with like a solid pace. Like I'm not talking about slow, but like a steady, you know, understands where the gaps are in the defense, and then attacks them when he, you know, needs to with speed, but also like a running back that follows his blockers really well, just plays at a really good pace as they kind of navigate the offense. And I noticed that a lot about Fultz is that he changes speed and direction really well. He gets into that soft spot, as you mentioned, if it was a zone defense especially, but kind of gets into that kind of soft spot of the defense and then it either attacks for himself or creates for other teammates. And so I think that could be a huge advantage to guys like Bowl, guys like Burks coming off a pick and roll, but certainly somebody like Mustafa, who, if you can get more of a playmaker that can get him the ball in the right spots, I mean, look out, the potential could be really big. So I like seeing that out of Fultz as well. But Jordan Burks is also a great addition. And then lastly, our 5th transfer so far this season is George Beal Jr., 6'4", 200-pound combo guard. He is going to be a senior this year, as far as I could tell. He is the only one of this transfer class that doesn't really have any type of rankings or doesn't even have his picture up on 247. He's not somebody who's highly regarded. I believe that this is this particular get from Johnny Dawkins is somebody that he has. This is not any insider knowledge or whatever, but just for the fact that George Beal is from the Virginia area. He is somebody who has played at Virginia his entire life. I mean, he played at Norfolk State for 2 seasons, and he played at Hampton last year. I just believe that I would not be surprised if the connection that Johnny Dawkins has to that area of the country, that he has known about this guy for a really long time, or knows a connection that kind of endorsed this kid to come over to UCF. He is definitely a combo guard. He's not somebody that racks up a bunch of assists, but he played 33 games for Hampton last season, started in 15 of them, started in half of them, averaged almost 25 minutes a game. So he's certainly a main rotational player. 13 points per game, so he was one of their leading scorers. 2.3 rebounds and less than an assist a game. But the reason why I think he is going to be brought here, and if he gets playing time next year, or I should say gets significant playing time in our lineup next season, is because he is being brought here to knock down shots. I mean,
that's what I was thinking. Just a shooter.
He is a straight up He is a assassin from the 3-point line. He's a 40% 3-point shooter last year at Hampton. And all of his highlight reels that I could find on him, it's him shooting 3-pointers in numerous different ways. I mean, catch and shoot. He'll hit you with some hesitation moves and pull up off the dribble. I mean, 6'4". He's a decent size for a kind of point guard shooting guard that he is, or at least at Hampton, anyways. And he can rise up over a defense, and he's kind of cold blooded when it comes to, has no problem with shooting a three from at any point in the game. So he's definitely a knockdown shooter. I think that's his main appeal to Dawkins and the staff, but also some highlighting that I've seen that he does have the ability, like Fultz does, like Burks does, to knife through defenders in the lane and kind of finish strong at the rim as well. He's certainly a capable driver, but the main part of his game is just straight up hitting 3-pointers. And it's not that he can't do other things, but I think that's the main appeal as far as the reason why he's here.
Especially considering the other guys that we brought in and who we have left over on the roster. So I expect us to bone up a little bit more on our 3-point shooting. So some of the other guys that we bring in are going to be more, shooters, whether it be at the forward position or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
So I would expect our next group of guys that we bring in that are going to be something like that. All right. That was a great breakdown. Ben, thank you so much for doing that. I felt like I was in a long form ESPN preview for a game. It was awesome.
It was good.
That's not a dig at you at all. That's more of a, hey, we could have done a 30-minute segment on Fox or ESPN talking about UCF with that breakdown. So thank you so much for that.
Absolutely. Hopefully more to come as we get some more talented players.
Well, we're going to have to with 10 people in the
obviously.
There's no choice, right?
Yep.
Unless there's more poos that are hiding in the.
We don't need that. We don't need it. There's only one poo, and I'm okay with that.
Yeah, the biggest change with poo has been the amount of blonde that's going into his tips has increased over the years. All right, let's go ahead and pivot. We'll swiv it. That's what we'll call it. We'll swiv it. To UCF baseball. All right. We talked about some great things. Let's talk about some problems. I don't know, man. It feels like to me, and I'm just going to say this in general, right? This team is now 19-16 overall because we cleaned up out of conference, but 4-11 in Big 12. The crazy thing about this is we've lost in different ways, right? So like, it's like for stretches, the pitching has just gone to somewhere, right? That Kansas absolutely blasted us. And they're a good hitting team. They're like one of the top hitting teams in the country, right? Like like Kansas is no slouch when it comes to hitting. But our pitching, our closers, all of them have been getting blasted, absolutely blasted. Oh, look, I gave myself a thumbs up on here because I got an Mac. But, so they are absolutely getting blasted. And then our hitting has gone silent in spots. And then we've also had rallies in the 8th inning, and then our closers have come in, and we've just lost our closers for whatever reason, just lost it, and we're getting two-run games, like 2-run leads, and we're losing those in the 9th inning. So it's been so all over the place. It's not like something that you can point to one thing or the other. The defense has still been pretty good. Jimenez has been pretty good. We've left a lot of batters or a lot of runners on base. Against KSU, it was like, I think at 1.10 we left on base. That's just entirely too much in one game. And then I think we left 6 or 7 in the last game. We're manufacturing the runs. We're not getting them across the plate. And the pitching and the hitting it's just been fluky. Khalees has not been hitting like he's capable of. Cruson had a great game of the 5-for-5 against KSU, but I can't put my finger on it, but it's almost like they've forgotten how to win. I don't know what it is, but they're finding ways to lose. And that's the frustrating part for me, because this team has shown that it has the pieces it needs to win. It looked like a pretty solid team. And I'm not just talking about out of conference, but if you actually watch the games, they've got the pieces to win all of these games. But it's just something falls apart, whether it be the pitching, whether it be just not being able to come through with hitting. We had clutch hitting, and then the closers miss out. It's just I can't put my finger on it. It's not Rich Wallace, I can tell you that. So for those of you that are like, oh my God, Rich Wallace, remember this guy took us to the tournament last year, and
regional final in year one.
Exactly, in year one, at a regional final, and he brought his guys in, and he had this team playing really, really well.
A regional final that we probably would have won had we not gone up against one of the best pitchers in baseball in the final.
Right, 100% right. So this is not Rich Wallace, guys.
No.
I'm just going to put that. I'm going to put that out there, and I'm not just defending him because we get we always get the interview with him in the morning, but preseason, and because we have a connection with him. But Rich Wallace is not the problem. I don't know what the problem is. I did find it interesting that Rich Wallace was third base coach because some of our base running decisions, again, have been questionable. So he actually came out and was third base coach at KSU. I have a feeling our third base coach is not going to be with the baseball team after the year. But when you look at that, I don't know, and I'm going to ask you your guys' opinion on this. Do you think that's a show of force to rally the guys? I'm on the field with you kind of thing, or is that hey, our base running has had different questionable decisions, and I'm going to be out there and make sure that I'm there?
I can't. So I didn't get a chance to watch the games this weekend. I just had a lot going on. I had my own baseball player on the field this weekend, but so I didn't see that change. That's actually the first time I heard that. So that's very interesting. I think it's a mixture of both potentially. Just knowing Rich, I imagine he's such a competitor, and this has got to be eaten. I mean, this would eat up anybody, right? Like this would eat up anybody. I'm sure the team. I mean, what he's trying to do is just trying to keep the team together and motivated to, keep trying to push forward. Because as you mentioned, Roger, we've lost games in just strange ways. We've it hasn't been a consistent way of losing, that's for sure, but we have found ways to lose. And as that happens in any sport, you get up by a little bit and you're still tight, kind of one mistake happens and it could potentially snowball because you can start to say, here we go again, right? And so that's just a tough thing to deal with as a player. I'm sure it's an extremely difficult thing to deal with as a coach. And so I think getting out there on the field and being the third base coach, I think is a mixture of him trying to help his team understand that, yes, he is there for them in every way possible, but also him desperately is the wrong word, but I'm going to use it because I can't think of a better one, but desperately trying to figure out anything to kind of will this team to come out on top. And it's just wild when you see an offensive explosion like we saw on Friday night, and it's like, where did that come from? Maybe that's the wake up we need. And then all of a sudden the rest of the weekend is just another disappointing slate of games. And we explode for 15 runs on Friday night. We win 15-3. And like I said, it looked like we were going to turn it around. And then all of a sudden we lose a low scoring game, 1-3. And that 3 runs all for Kansas State happened in the 6th inning. And then we tried to rally. We tried our best to rally late on Sunday. We were down 8-2 going into the final inning, and we score 4 runs, but obviously that wasn't enough. And so that's
almost impossible in baseball, though.
Yeah. 8 runs. There's a reason why at the lower levels, that 8 runs after a certain amount of innings is considered a run rule. So yeah, I mean, coming back from 6 runs down in a Division I on the road, if you will, as well. is a really tough task. The fact that they scored 4 to try to give them a chance is interesting. But we have some great bright spots on this team. Jimenez has been amazing all season. His bat has really been coming alive lately. I think he had an excellent weekend at the plate.
He did.
But yeah, just overall it's perplexing. Even looking at some of the numbers, it's perplexing why we keep losing these games.
Well, I mean, we lost against North Florida too, 5-6, right? Like
a walk-off, and we walked in. They walked in the game tying run in the top of the 9th, and then we wound up losing it in the bottom of the 9th.
And that's what I mean by all of this, right? Like it's just we're finding ways to lose. And here's the crazy thing about this. We talked to Rich quite extensively. We don't just talk with him on the air. We do that for your benefit, but he's pretty candid with us, off air. Mm-hmm. And one of the things, just from our estimation and also from Rich's, this team actually has more talent than last year's regional team. So I don't understand it. I don't understand it. I don't know if they just got in a rut and they can't get out of it or what it is, but they've got to start turning it around, because 4-11 in conference is not going to do it. And that's not the expectation that Rich had, the expectation any of us had. I'm sure none of the players had, but the pitching as far as closing is concerned has to get better, because we're losing a lot of games late in innings. I mean, a ton of games late in innings because we can't close guys out. And in the 9th, not even like the 8th or, someone rallies in the 8th and then we can't get it back or something like that. In the 9th inning, that's what, and that's got to be frustrating for the guys on offense too, right? Because you get all the way through, you come back a lot of times in the 7th and 8th. That's a strength all season. We're putting runs on the boards and taking the lead, right? And then we lose it because our closing pitching can't close it out. And I don't understand that, because we've got some really good closers.
Right.
All right. Let's go ahead and swib it to we'll swib it to tennis. I want to take a moment. We normally don't talk about tennis, and since Alan's not here to deliver his moronic stat of the week this week, he's at a Cats game. So I wanted to talk a little bit about tennis, and the reason why tennis, and specifically women's tennis. And I don't know if you guys remember, I was saying that, and Trey was arguing with me that I thought tennis was going to be the one to win the first championship. Well, the women have won the first Big 12 championship of UCF's Big 12 career. So this past weekend, they beat Utah 4-1 and won the regular season championship. Now, obviously, they haven't played in the tournament yet. The tournament is coming up, but they did win that. So congratulations to UCF women's tennis. Congratulations to UCF. We can claim our first Big 12 title that we can put in our non-existent trophy case. This tennis program has had a real turnaround, since the previous leadership left. Both the men's and women's have been playing really, 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 really well. And, they did a great job. And I just wanted to make sure we called that out. Now, I will say this, it is a shared title with Texas Tech and OSU. And the interesting thing is each of us handed each other a loss. So there is no tiebreakers in the Big 12, right? So if you win a share, you win a share. But even if we did, Texas Tech beat us. We beat OSU. OSU beat Texas Tech. So nobody would have won that tiebreaker anyway, even if there were tiebreaking rules. So congratulations to the women's tennis team, and congratulations to UCF on its first Big 12 championship. Anything you guys want to add to that?
I mean, you said it all. I mean, congratulations. That's amazing that we got one. I think this team has been really building towards that, and they've been special all year. As I get updated every week on this program and others, I'm excited that we have gotten our first, and hopefully first of many, many, many in other sports as well.
All right. Let's go ahead. I was going to talk about Jemele Hill this week and her recent comments about UCF and calling UCF out, saying that if you want to be a P4 program, because there's been a conversation and the commissioners came out recently together on Fox Sports the Power 4 commissioners talking about, the NIL and kind of leveling the field and all of that other stuff. And there was the thought of a players union being brought up that's been percolating around because of how crazy this has all gotten with NIL. And it looks like that the court decision is going to be ratified here. That was shortly. That's going to be within the next 30 days. And we'll talk about it again next week. But Jemele Hill specifically called us out by saying, if we want to be a P4 program, then the business community and the donors need to put forward the dollars. So interesting that UCF got dragged through the mud for this. I will, from here on out, Jemele Hill is Jemele Pill, because she's a pill in the sports world. And in this particular case, in that take, she absolutely was. So that's all I'm going to say this week, but I'm going to bring it up next week because we're at 150. Go ahead, Ben. Did you want to say something?
I was just going to say I haven't had Jemele Hill has been an awful sportscaster or commentator on anything involving anything in life for years and years, and this is you just add it to the list as far as I'm concerned.
And that's coming from a ESPN. All right, let's go ahead and
coworker.
No, definitely not a coworker of hers. I was not at that level.
All right, let's back to Josh. Josh, let's talk about your sometimes funny fact of the week. What do you have for us this week? We missed it last week.
Well, we're going to talk about something in our quick update for other UCF sports that Alan doesn't watch, and one of that's going to actually be rowing. A little preview: rowing is thriving, and they're thriving for many reasons, including our less than 2 years on the job head coach. How about this? Give me either her name or how many collegiate national championships did she win in college as a athlete and as a coach in the collegiate sport.
So I just cheated because I was looking up the rowing program as you were mentioning rowing. So I'm not going to say her name, but I am going to guess. And you said how many championships as a coach and a player? Is that what you said?
Correct.
Or as a rower, I guess. Yeah, I don't know if you call them players. I don't know. Let's say that she's won. I'm just going to guess 5. I mean, that seems like an extremely.
Yeah, it's fine. Yeah, it's fine. What do you got there, Roger? What do you think?
I'm gonna guess because I think wasn't she from Texas?
She was a coach at Texas.
So I'm gonna say 7, 8. I'm gonna go 8.
You guys are aggressive there. So Ben, that coach's name is
Mara Allen.
Correct, and she won 2 as a rower, I guess, at Cal, and then 2 at UT. She was only there for a little bit, and they happen to be going there in a couple of weeks, which we'll talk about in the next segment. That Roger may not tee up for me.
I do want to say this real quick about rowing. Rowing was a top 25 program in the AAC, so they've been a good program for a really, really long time. And Coach Kramer, who was the longtime head coach, she left. There were circumstances around that. She's no longer with the program. And it kind of, UCF rowing kind of went through a transition phase as it moved into the new coaching staff. But Mara Allen has been absolutely killing it in her short time here. And I'm excited because that was one of the programs that was consistently in the NCAA championships, competing, was really, really good we're talking about a decade. We're not talking about like 2 or 3 years, right? So I'm excited, certainly excited to hear that, and congratulations to Coach as she continues to lead the team. All right. So as the aforementioned quick update on other UCF sports that Alan does not watch. Go ahead and take it away, Josh.
So UCF softball, we were actually talking about that, and UCF softball is actually 25-18-1 after beating BYU this weekend in Provo, but not on Sunday. They won on Thursday 9-1 in 5 innings, 4-3 on Friday, and Saturday lost the sweep opportunity 1-9 in a blowout in 6. Up next is Oklahoma State, number 17 at the Plex this Thursday. And that's going to be another Thursday, Friday, Saturday, because obviously, for some reason they're not playing in Sunday. I don't know what that might be. This Thursday, it's at 4:17 at 6. It's on Friday, 4:18 at 7, and at Saturday at noon. The now number 15 rowing team, yes, rowing, is going. They finished the Rocky Top Invitational. I'm like 99.9% certain. We talked nothing about rowing last week. I've been pretty busy this week. I didn't get the watch call back, but I'm assuming you didn't talk about it.
We did not. Alan and I did not touch on the rowing team.
Yeah, because Alan doesn't watch. This is not Alan's thing. That's fine. It's perfectly fine. So it was interesting. They did not win any of the races, but they were second and third place in like 5 different races, and they were basically either below or in between number 5 Tennessee and number 14 Duke for almost the entire competition. So did really, really well. Did not win like a couple weeks back, but they did. The first 8 was named Big 12 Boat of the Week for the second consecutive week. So we have some. We have some rowers. So why not? The next up is the Longhorn Invitational next weekend, which you might understand why we are participating in based off of the previous segment, the Sometimes Funny Fact of the Week. That is on the weekend of the 25th and 26th. So we have a couple weeks for that. It's in Austin, Texas, and Decker Lake. Now, University of Texas at Austin was ranked number 1 in the April 8th ranking of the POCOC Collegiate Rowing Colleges Coaches Association poll. They're also competing against number 2 Stanford and number 20 OKLAHOMA Oklahoma.
Yeah.
The PCRCA, huh, Josh? Yeah.
I was
CRCA, yeah.
I was just about to say that. Ben beat me to it. That's awesome. All right. So that means that we have what now? 3 ranked teams. We have the rowers, and we have the 2 tennis teams that are ranked as well. So
yeah, everyone who thinks Terry Mahajer is falling behind. Look, we got some 3 top 25 teams.
Gosh, we're gonna hold that until next week. That'll be the Jamil Hill conversation too, because there's some questions about that. All right. Final thoughts for this week. Number 1, thank you everyone for viewing, watching. We see you. I can see the number of people that are watching at any given time. Thank you for supporting if you're watching later. I did put a correction in the comments. Shakuri Brown obviously came from Miami, not the real South Florida, not the other one. I don't know what I was thinking there. But I want to thank you guys for catching up with this. And listen, it's still exciting times at UCF, so make sure that you're supporting the teams. We appreciate likes, subscribes, follows, shares. Tell your friends. Have a great week, and go Knights and
charge on.
There we go. That's so much better without Alan here. I'm just kidding. I know you're going to listen to this in post.